family building journey was long. I guess that's one of the first things that comes to mind when I think about it. And it impacts so many different aspects of your life, from your finances, emotionally, to family and friends. We tried to have, between my wife and I, either one of us tried to get pregnant for really a period of probably about 8 years, and then kind of dedicated with my wife for about 5 years. There was, breaks in between this. Certainly it wasn't kind of consistent, but we did a whole round of a number of different rounds of IUIs, I think like 12 or something of the sort. And then one round of IVF, which actually resulted in two viable and genetically tested embryos. The first was our son, Sebastian, who died shortly after birth. And then the second is our son, Julian, who my wife is actually pregnant with right now, and he's due in 1 month. During that whole entire time, though, the amount of finances, the amount of money that we had to spend was incredible. Thinking about, when you think about all the doctor's visits, we have really good insurance, and none of the fertility was covered. I know some insurances do and some don't. So that's one thing that I think is important to think about in terms of finances. We were, fortunate that we had, some kind of extra money, but, that all went to kind of this family planning, this kind of family building process. Between the rounds of IUIs, the travel associated with that, we had a midwife at one point. The IVF in general is very expensive. So that was really a big hit. And when you think about the amount of money that you have to spend on this, so that people that do experience infertility, or same-sex couples that are planning for children, it's really a lot. I mean, you have to kind of be dedicated that this is what you're spending your money on. And it's unfortunate that it's like that. And so on top of that, I think comes emotionally. I mean, it's all encompassing is, I think, one of the things that I think about when I think about that process. I mean, sometimes it was really exciting and, brought my wife and I, so much. I think the whole process brought us very close together, certainly. But it was hard, I mean, everything, it was always on our mind, even if we weren't actively trying to get pregnant, not going through rounds of IUIs. It was always on our mind, I mean, for honestly 10 years, almost our entire relationship. And we kind of now joke about, well, what are we going to do when we're not thinking about trying to have a child all the time, which is crazy, right? I mean, so it's just, and it's such a specific thing that you have to do, as a LGBTQ couple. It's, you can't, you're not having children from having sex, you have to do this kind of whole other process. And it just becomes this, it's so all encompassing. And like I said, there were certainly times that we took breaks, but even during those times, and so many, even our life decisions were based on, well, when are we going to be doing more IUIs, or when are we going to be moving on to IVF? I mean, even kind of places we chose to live, had a big impact on that as well, in terms of regulations for LGBTQ couples, surrounding family building and things like that. So it really is a big impact. And I think that speaks a little bit to the social aspect of things as well. Like I said, where you decide on living, are you going to be in a big city where it's easier and people are more understanding as an LGBTQ couple about the family building process? If you're someplace where they're not, it can be really difficult. And even for us, we have very supportive family and friends. Our parents are, both of our parents, very supportive of our relationship and very supportive of our, our kind of family journey. They, didn't really understand what we were going through, I think, in a lot of cases. And, one thing I think about when I think about the process is how, as a gay couple, that so much of what we do in terms of family building was so public. It was just not a private process. If you're, you have sex to have a baby, people don't ask you about that all the time. Oh, how did that go last night? But I mean, when I don't think we had one time of having an IUI where there wasn't at least a number of people, very well-meaning and very well-intentioned family and friends, asking about, oh, how was it? They knew we were doing it. And it's like, of course we want to share with them, but at a point, particularly after we had such a tough time, we just weren't getting pregnant. And it was just like, you already had to live with the disappointment of it not working time after time after time. And then also having to go through that disappointment again with your family and friends. It was rough, I mean, it was definitely rough. And like I said, I know people are well intentioned, and but it would have been easier if we could just go to them, and kind of talk about it if we wanted to, or just not talk about it if we didn't want to, because there's a lot of times you didn't want to, but then you don't want to tell your mom to butt out, or whatnot. So at least we don't. So that part was rough. And I'm certainly just in thinking about, there was a lot of, it took so much time that's certainly time that we could have spent with family, we could have spent with friends, that we weren't able to. And not going to places. We missed out on a friend's wedding in an international location because we didn't want to travel and get sick. I mean, all these things kind of come into it. So it impacted us a lot, and it was a long journey, and we're still we're still in it right now.